Welcome to the Year of the Movie podcast, the podcast where we talk about movies from the year of the movie 2023. We're your hosts. We started this podcast because 2023 was kind of a weird year for movies. You got wacky movies like Strays, 65, 80 for Brady. You had great films, some of cinema's greatest films like 65, 80 for Brady.
That other one that you said.
Strays.
Yep.
No, The Holdovers.
Yeah.
Great film.
Anatomy of a Fall. I hear it's good.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. Barbie was good.
Oppenheimer is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. If you like this podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon, reviewing and rating on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and following us on Instagram, subscribing, YouTube, ring bell.
Smash like. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
Or not.
But maybe.
Maybe.
Housekeeping.
Yeah.
So if you're an avid viewer, which I think we might have some at this point.
That's true.
You'll probably notice that we haven't been posting every week.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and just assume it's an every other week podcast.
Yeah.
We're getting really busy.
Yeah.
Outside.
Which is good.
It is.
Yeah.
We, would love to get back to a weekly schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's hard for us to maintain the thing that we did of building up a backlog and then, banking on that. It's hard to schedule the time to record or to watch 3 movies and then research 3 movies and record 3 podcast episodes about movies.
Yeah.
Hard to do that right now. So, plan on it being in every other week. And if we sneak one in between those episodes, then great. That's fun for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And today we're talking about The Boy and the Heron.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you like those movies, this is the one for you.
The synopsis of The Boy and the Heron is Mahito, a young 12-year-old boy, struggles to settle into a new town after his mother's death. However, when a talking heron informs Mahito that his mother is still alive, he enters an abandoned tower in search of her, which takes him to another world. What were your first impressions when you heard about this movie? How did you hear about this movie, and how do you feel about Studio Ghibli?
I heard about this movie.
Great.
And I said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I thought they were done making movies. Oh, they're not done making movies?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. And that's kind of how I feel about Studio Ghibli movies. I thought that when they made that 3D one, that 3D animated one that I haven't seen,
Yeah.
I've just seen a trailer or something,
Mm-hmm.
that was a mistake because it looked
Different.
not like how it should.
Yeah.
Things should look a certain way. I liked Ponyo when I was a kid. That
Mhm.
was the only one that I really watched because it was on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I heard about this movie at some point. It must have been an article or something, and I was just like, sweet.
Mm-hmm.
They're not done making movies.
Yeah.
And was looking forward to it, and then didn't really hear anything about it for a while, and it turns out there was a reason for that. I thought I was just a fake fan. Yeah, I know I've mentioned before, Kiki's great. Big Kiki fan. Castle in the Sky was my other favorite one. I have seen Princess Mononoke, a couple of the other classic ones. I haven't seen all of them. I haven't seen Ponyo. Can do that at some point. Yeah, in general, I'm a fan.
I saw Howl's Moving Castle once.
Yeah, that's the one.
I could have done without it. There were parts that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly Billy Crystal.
Yeah. Yeah. So the trailer for this movie, there is no trailer for this movie. Was initially, at least,
Mm-hmm.
for the Japanese release. There was very little press about this movie intentionally, or like very little promotional material. So there was no trailer. There eventually one was made for its international release, and I feel like I saw that at some point, but I decided to not do a trailer breakdown. One, because again, we're busy, and there wasn't one, and focusing on how it was initially marketed.
Yeah.
The cast of the movie.
Great cast.
We watched the English dub
Yeah.
because we are Americans.
I don't want to read. If I wanted to read, I'd go to a library.
This is like a very visual movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So
Also, like I said this when watching, like these to me don't fall into the dub or sub argument because they put so much into this English dub. It's not like it's just people saying English words.
yeah,
Like they're actually acting.
true.
Which is evident with Robert Pattinson's performance.
Yeah.
Luca Padovan
Mm-hmm.
as Mihito Maki, Robert Pattinson as the Grey Heron, Christian Bale as Sochi Maki, Florence Pugh as Kiriko, Gemma Chan as Natsuko/Hisako, Dave Bautista as the Parakeet King, Willem Dafoe as the Noble Pelican, Karen Fukuhara as Lady Hime, Mark Hamill as Grand Uncle, and it had a large additional cast, including Mamoru Athie from Elemental,
Mm-hmm.
Tony Revolori, you know him, he's Flash Thompson in the Tom Holland Spider-Man films.
Oh.
And he's also the bellboy in Grand
Yeah.
Budapest Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Stevens, the Beast in the live-action Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
He's in,
Downton Abbey.
sure, whatever. Legion.
He's in that little girl vampire movie that came out this year that I do want to see, Abigail or something.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Alright.
that looks real goofy.
Barbara Goodson. I don't know her.
Unfortunately, I don't know her either.
Denise Pickering.
I also don't know her. Barbara and Denise seem to be like prolific voice actors who I do not recognize.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a pretty good English dub cast, obviously. I didn't include it in our fun facts section, but I feel like there was that one fact that kept going around of like Robert Pattinson had never done a voice acting thing before. He came in and basically nailed it in one take where he was like, this is just kind of the vibe I'm thinking of this guy, and came out with an incredibly goofy voice that you would not recognize as Robert Pattinson. So he done good.
It, to me, sounds like he's doing Willem Dafoe.
That's true.
So, like, when I saw that both of the
Yeah.
the herons were basically voiced by Willem Dafoe.
Many birds are played by big boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're confused by some of the character names, such as the Parakeet King, it's gonna get more confusing because this is not a great movie to just like explain what happens.
So we're going to explain what happens.
So I'm gonna say a bunch of words, and then we're gonna talk about them.
Mhm.
Okay, so Mahito lives with his family in Tokyo during the Pacific War.
You lost me.
Okay. One night, his mother dies in a fire in the hospital where she works. Is at? They did not say.
I
Okay.
thought work.
Okay, I assumed work, but I started questioning myself. Anyway, this is the second sentence of this breakdown. Mahito witnessed the fire and is clearly traumatized by it. Some time passes. Mahito's father, Soichi, has remarried to his late wife's sister, Natsuko, and has moved them to Natsuko's family home in the countryside close to the factory he oversees. Natsuko shows Mahito around, welcoming him into the home and saying she'll be a mother to him. She also tells him she's pregnant and he's going to be a brother. Mahito explores the family home. He meets the group of elderly women who work as caretakers for the place. He also sees a gray heron flying around, and Mahito is very interested in the bird's behavior. It often flies to a rundown tower that Natsuko's great uncle built and was eventually lost inside. we'll come back to him. Mahito starts at his new school, and it does not go well. There's a fight with another boy. Mahito gets roughed up, but on the way home, he injures himself further and hits his head with a rock.
On purpose.
On purpose. His father is very upset and takes his son out of school. The older woman and Natsuko care for Mahito as he recovers. The heron also keeps bothering Mahito at his window and walking across the roof above his room. Finally, Mahito goes outside with a stick to confront the heron. He asks what it wants, and the heron speaks and tells Mahito his mother isn't dead. The heron wants Mahito to follow him, and a swarm of frogs and other animals cover Mahito, telling him to join them. Natsuko and the other woman come outside. Natsuko fires an arrow into the air, and it startles the animals away. Mahito collapses and is taken back to bed. He recovers and decides to craft his own bow and arrow using one of the heron's feathers for his arrow. He finds a book that his mother left for him titled How Do You Live? While reading, Natsuko goes missing and a search for her begins. Mahito takes his bow and arrow and looks for her in the woods near the tower. One of the older women, Kiriko, searches with him and warns about staying away from the tower. They enter the tower, getting stuck inside. The heron tricks Mahito with a fake image of his mother. Mahito fires an arrow at the heron, and it leaves a hole in the bird's beak, which then he can't fly. The heron is revealed to have a flightless spirit inside that looks like a small man. When they confront each other, a figure appears above them and instructs the bird to act as a guide for Mahito. The boy, the birdman, and Kiriko all begin to sink into the floor. Mahito wakes up in a grassy area surrounded by a large ocean. He's quickly attacked by pelicans, but is rescued by a younger woman resembling Kiriko. She puts him to work on her ship, and they go fishing. They sell a fish to round spirits called warawara, which fly to Mahito's world above to be born as people. Pelicans attack and eat the warawara as they fly into the air, but the spirits are saved by a woman with fire powers, Lady Hime. A dying pelican tells Mahito they never meant to be in this world. They got trapped here and are just trying to survive. Mahito buries the pelican. The birdman meets back up with Mahito, and Kiriko forces the two to get along. Mahito makes a plug to fill the hole in the heron's beak, restoring his flying powers. The heron agrees to guide Mahito through the world as they search for Natsuko, and then the two are quickly separated by a giant anthropomorphic parakeet who eats everything and everyone. Mahito is rescued by Hime, who is around his age, and the two become friends. Hime agrees to help Mahito find Natsuko, who she says is her sister. Hime leads Mahito through the tower. They go through a hallway of many doors that all lead to different times and places. Mahito sees his dad and a search party looking for him and Natsuko through one of the doors. They travel through the parakeet territory and go deeper into the tower, which was built around a meteor of some sort. Hime says the rock at the center of the tower is upset they're there. Mahito finds Natsuko in a delivery room. She's very upset that he's there, yelling at him to go away. He begs her to come with him. She says she hates him. He calls her mother. Eventually, Mahito is pushed out of the room by a giant wind. Hime helps him again, and they all fall unconscious from the event. Parakeets find Hime and Mahito and capture them. While unconscious, Mahito meets the mysterious figure from earlier, who turns out to be Natsuko's granduncle who had gone missing. He's the keeper of the tower and maintains the world by rearranging building blocks. He tells Mahito he needs someone from his bloodline to take over his responsibilities and asks Mahito to do it. Mahito notices that the blocks are infused with malice, and then he wakes up to the Birdman rescuing him. The parakeets, led by their king, are taking Hime to the tower architect in an effort to convince him to keep maintaining their world. Mahito and the Birdman follow, trying to recover Hime. They arrive after the parakeet king had delivered Hime, and he decides to watch what happens with Mahito. The tower architect, who is also Hime's granduncle, has collected new blocks that don't have malice, and he offers them to Mahito to form his own worlds and hopefully form something better than what he could. Mahito refuses, mentioning how he gave himself a scar because of his own internal malice. He says instead he wants to embrace the people close to him that love him. The Parakeet King is upset by this and tries to build a tower with the blocks himself. The blocks aren't stable and quickly collapse, and the world begins to collapse as well. Mahito and Hime run away from approaching flood, saying goodbye to the granduncle and thanking him for everything. Mahito, Hime, and the Birdman all escape to the Hall of Doorways, where they reunite with Natsuko and Kiriko. Hime tells Mahito he has to return to his own time now, and so does she. She tells him she can't wait to become his mom, plot twist. He warns her about what will happen if she returns to her own time, but she says she isn't worried. Everyone walks through their own doorways and returns to the proper times. The Birdman notices that Mahito kept a tower block and warns him to forget about everything he experienced. They reunite with the search party in a flock of flying parakeets. 2 years later, Mahito is packing up his room as his family returns to Tokyo. He goes downstairs to meet his family, his dad, Natsuko, and his new baby brother. The end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty cohesive.
It's pretty straightforward.
It's just cut and dry. There's like that other movie that we talked about, The Retirement Plan or whatever, with Nick Cage.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that movie.
Where is Bobo? This cast was missing Ron Perlman.
It was.
Yeah, so it's typical of a Ghibli movie in the sense that, like, you gotta just let the vibes happen.
Yeah.
There's meaning in there,
Yeah.
or like it's philosophical, but like if you just do the thing that we just did of telling people what's in it, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
I think there's also some cultural things that us Western folk maybe don't have that context
Yeah.
and upbringing to completely understand.
Yeah, like I'm aware of that, like when we're watching it, but it does still like make me go like when stuff happens with like Natsuko telling Mahito like, I'm your mother now.
Yeah.
You're going to have a brother, and he just like he's just got to deal with it.
Yeah, like that part I was just like, it was funny because she was just like, I'm your mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's funny.
It's funny because it was so straightforward.
Yeah. There's other parts like regarding where he does eventually just call her mom.
Yeah.
There's really no like progression.
I mean, she's been gone. Like
she's been gone,
yeah.
and then he's like, Mom.
Yeah.
But we don't see that like he has. You get like one moment where he like goes and visits her when she's not feeling well.
Yeah.
And then it was just very sudden.
It's like he visits her when she's not feeling well, but he does that like out of obligation because like all the old women are like, you should go see her. Yeah. She's asking for you. Yeah, there's also stuff like that where it's just like, I left it out of this because it's hard to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then like the escalation to then calling her mother is like, it's not a bad thing because like Natsuko cares for him and like she is a good person, so it's not like an evil stepmother thing, but it's just like I didn't quite get what the emotional escalation was there.
To me, it was just like, I guess he's
accepting his mother's death
and trying to move on.
Yeah.
But there wasn't. Yeah. It's just one of those things because there's so much that happens in this movie and Ghibli movies that it is just like, you just accept it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's calling her mother now. That means he has gone through growth.
Yeah.
You're just not seeing it.
Yeah. Like, which like is fine.
Yeah.
Because like, you don't need everything like spelled out for you or said out loud, and like it is always awkward when someone is like, and now I feel better and I'm going to say it out loud so the audience can understand. And like that, it's not like it's clumsy or anything. It's just like, oh, okay, we're moving on. Yeah, you just kind of have to let the vibes happen. It's pretty typical of a Ghibli movie in the sense of like, it's gonna be a little kid or a young kid who's just like learning about the world and just
growing up.
Yeah, and being told like, you have to accept this
tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah, like Spirited Away is more like, I would say, a more straightforward plot than this one, where like young girl is trying to rescue her parents, but that's like she starts working immediately, and everyone's just like, all right, then like if you want to do this, then like here's the stuff you have to do, and like no one goes easy on her. And like it's kind of similar to that of like Mojito gets dropped into this otherworldly place, and then just like has to start fishing because that's what the next
Like, all right,
is. Yeah,
I guess I'll start.
yeah. The ending note, maybe this is the downside of the English dub, I don't really know, but the ending note is Mojito narrates like 2 years later we moved back to Tokyo, and that's like the last thing. It's just like him saying what happened, and I didn't feel necessary, or like it was just weird that that was like the final thing. Like you saw all the parakeets and like everyone like they hug and reunite, and like even though it was like kind of a little weird, like yeah, they are a family now, and then he just says what happens. I don't know.
I think it just goes on to what we were just saying of like that ending is them saying, despite this magical thing that happened, they're all just moving on and living their normal lives because
Yeah.
life can't be this fantasy that you want it to be.
Right.
And it's just like so mundane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that I liked it either.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like my biggest problem. Like it was just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. The other thing I have is Ghibli is known for having fantastic shots of food that you just want to eat, and there wasn't enough of those in this movie. There was Mojito and Himi sitting, and they had bread with jam on it, and that looked very good. I just wanted to see more shots of good food.
I think the rest of it was because it took place during a world war, and so there was a food shortage in the real world, and so we didn't get to see great food.
Yeah, that isn't like a real complaint. It's just like, that's like the other good part of these movies. It definitely made sense in like the real world, because like the older women, like they get sugar and they're so excited about it.
Just a can of sardines or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the fantasy world, I guess like the only time they really talk about food is the parakeets, who eat everything.
Yeah.
So you don't super want to see that. But yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it overall. Like
I'm
gonna be on board because it is a Ghibli movie.
I won't watch this again.
That's fair.
I didn't dislike it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not my favorite overall. Just I usually don't get it, and that makes me a dummy.
No.
But that's okay. But I do know it is good.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't.
You can look at it and know that it's good, and it's just like, all right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your movie.
It's nice. I said this like when we were watching it, that I like this one particularly is Alice in Wonderland.
Oh yeah.
Like if you like Alice in Wonderland, you'll probably like this one.
True.
It's Alice in Wonderland, which was already made on LSD, but then someone then took crack, and they were like, yeah, the parakeets eat everything. Yeah.
He builds a tower and then it falls and he fixes it. Mark Hamill is there.
And there are doors that lead to other places, and we don't explain it.
We just see the one.
Yeah. My only, like, what I do definitely like about Alice in Wonderland more is that, like, Alice's whole thing is that she's a bratty child, and I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But she also questions things.
Mm.
And in this one, he's just like, all right, I'm fishing.
That is also pretty typical Ghibli, where everyone is just like, okay.
I'm accepting whatever is being thrown at me because the script says to. But I do like the child be like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I have to fish?
Yeah. Oh, the part that I was also like, I don't know how I feel, or I don't agree with this, or was like, he didn't question It's like when Mahito and Himi are captured, then like they capture Himi as like punishment because she helped him get into Natsuko's delivery room.
Yeah.
And they kept saying like, well, that's a big rule. Like that's a big no-no. Like
Can't go in the delivery
no
room.
one goes in the delivery room. And it was just like they just kept saying it in a way of like, this is a pre-established rule. And she's like, what is Natsuko's relationship with all of this?
Yeah.
Like what is happening? They also briefly mentioned that Mahito's mom, when she was a little girl, went missing for a year, and then came back, and she was like fine and happy.
Yeah.
But like the implication is like she was in the tower for a year, and then so it's like
Time works very differently.
Yeah, yeah. There's just like why is the delivery room thing a rule, and why isn't like he kind of questions. He's like, why did they punish Himi instead of me?
Yeah.
And then there was a reason, but they were also climbing a tower, so then they didn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, when they were going to the delivery room, the rocks were sparking, and then the explanation was, the rocks aren't happy, we're here.
Yeah. There's some flashbacks with the great uncle or granduncle, his fancy title, but like
It's my grand.
he found this meteor and then decided to build a tower around it, and then things went wrong. He got obsessed with the tower and then like got lost inside of it. So that's like kind of supposed to be the explanation of the source of all of this, or like the reason why there's another world. Yeah, it's otherworldly for sure. Yeah, I would say like it's worth a rewatch to go back to the details, but I agree like it's not. I'm not incentivized enough to watch it again anytime soon. I would be open to it eventually. It's not my favorite Ghibli movie.
Yeah, I don't think it's an Oscar winning. Like, it obviously...
Technically.
It did.
Yeah.
But I don't think this one... It's the similar thing of Oppenheimer shouldn't have been Nolan's Oscar. I mean, I don't know how many other Ghibli films have won Oscars. I don't...
A few.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it normally gets some sort of like animated film, because like it is very visually impressive. Like all the weird stuff happens, but it is
very detailed.
It's very detailed. It's very colorful.
I still preferred the Spider-Verse animation. But
yeah,
yeah,
that's fair. Anything else before production facts?
Production facts.
Great. So it was released July 14th, 2023 in Japan, with the U.S. release date December 8th, 2023.
Just made the cusp.
It also opened the 2023 Toronto International Film Festival September 7th, and it's the first animated movie in the festival's history to do so, which was apparently the festival's strongest opening night in decades.
Animation's just for kids, right?
They make that joke every time at the Oscars, and it's you should watch this one and figure out how you feel about it.
Looking at you, Dad.
It's got a 2-hour, 4-minute runtime, and it's rated PG-13. It's got a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes with an 88% popcorn meter. It's got a 91 on Metacritic and an A- on CinemaScore. Initial reviews were generally positive, but a little bit mixed due to the confusion on the film's meaning. It's considered one of the best Ghibli films, but it's also noted that it's a better watch if you're already a Ghibli fan. Like, it's not a good intro point into Miyazaki's work.
And it's not one of the better films.
It's...
Like, that doesn't...
No, it's considered, like, a culmination. It's not an intro point. It's like everything has been building to this.
Okay. I guess I've not seen enough to be able to agree or disagree.
I don't know. I think like the messaging of Princess Mononoke is stronger.
Yeah.
And like also very technically impressive. It's also a little like a little weird where like stuff just kind of happens, but like the messaging of like environmentalism is much stronger as a theme than this to me.
I feel like my closest translation is when we watched Asteroid City, we agreed it was a great film, but isn't the best one to start with
For Wes Anderson. Yes, it's like that.
But I also don't feel Asteroid City is a culmination.
No.
So.
But it's also because of the way that Miyazaki is, then like you never know when he's gonna retire. So
Like a WWE star.
exactly. So the one of the descriptions I saw called it the perfect swan song for his career. So it's kind of like if this is the note that he goes out on, then like knocked it out of the park. Up however you feel about that. The budget is estimated to be over $64 million, and that's in U.S. money. According to producer Toshio Suzuki, this is the most expensive film ever produced in Japan.
Wow.
The financing of the production came from a streaming deal to put Studio Ghibli films on Netflix. Miyazaki was unaware of what streaming is, and Suzuki had to explain it to him to convince him to make the deal. Miyazaki is very removed from technology.
Yep. Glad that his art form relies
on hand-drawn. The previous most expensive Japanese film was another Ghibli movie, which is The Tale of Princess Kaguya, 2013. I have not seen that one. And that was 64 million US adjusted for inflation. So that's where that figure comes from. I could not get an exact number, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
But box office wise, it has earned $294.2 million worldwide. It's the fifth highest grossing Japanese movie of all time. It earned 1.8 billion yen, which is 13.2 million US, in its opening weekend in Japan. It's Studio Ghibli's biggest opening weekend. The previous biggest was Howl's Moving Castle in 2004 at 1.5 billion. It only dropped out of the top 10 highest grossing films in its 13th weekend of its run, so it was up there for a really long time. It's the first original anime film and Hayao Miyazaki's first film to reach number 1 at the US Canadian box office at a $12.8 million opening weekend. So people were into this.
Yep.
So the production timeline, September 2013, Hayao Miyazaki announces his retirement. I guess we should say, if you don't know, Studio Ghibli is like a very well-established animation company founded in part by Miyazaki.
Yeah.
He is all over all of their movies, and like is the driving creative force behind it. So like a Miyazaki movie is like a very specific vibe based on what we've been talking about. I feel like you can figure out what that vibe is. So yeah, 2013, he announces his retirement. Between 2013 and 2016, he reverses his decision after working on the short Borrow the Caterpillar, which was made for the Studio Ghibli Museum. I guess it got him interested in the process again. July 2016, Miyazaki begins storyboarding a new feature. May 2017, official production begins. And then October 2017, the film's title is announced, targeting a release around the 2020 Summer Olympics. And then May 2020, it's announced that 36 minutes of the film have been hand-drawn by 60 animators, and there is now no set deadline. And then there's delays with the pandemic. They said they didn't have too many delays because like it was pretty easy for everyone to just work remotely, and it didn't really interrupt their workflow that much once they figured stuff out. And then Miyazaki also has this slower animation pace. The production took around 7 years in total. So 2 years for pre-production and then 5 years animating. And then it neared completion at the end of 2022. And then Miyazaki used to finalize 10 minutes of animation a month. And his pace was now down to 1 minute a month. He also didn't oversee every single frame of this film like he had for previous films. instead focusing on like the story outline structure. He is an old man, so it makes sense that he's slowed down and like can't be all over it in the way that he has when the studio was founded.
Yep.
But wild to see those stats.
Yeah.
There's noises around.
Sounded like the building was falling.
Yeah. It's won a couple awards.
How many's a couple?
35 and 84 nominations listed on IMDb. So some of those awards include the 2024 Academy Award, BAFTA, Golden Globe, and those are all for Best Animated Feature Film. It's got 7 nominations from the Annie Awards, which is specifically for animation, including winning Outstanding Achievement for Storyboarding and Character Animation. Interesting that storyboarding was highlighted, but I guess that's because Miyazaki is the one who did it.
Yeah.
There's no tagline for this movie. Because there is very little marketing for this movie.
I mean, Alice in Wonderland on crack. That's what it is right there.
So, the film is heavily inspired by Miyazaki's childhood, his favorite books, and also a message to his grandson that even when Miyazaki is gone, he'll have left this film behind for him. So the Japanese title of the film translates to How Do You Live, which references a 1937 novel with the same name. It is not an adaptation of that novel. Miyazaki has just apparently been fascinated with that question, and it focuses on similar themes. He talked to like the descendant of the author, and they were on board with everything. The film's release put that book back into circulation. It's now that publishing company's #1 book with 1.8 million in circulation. So good for them. Yeah. And then Miyazaki's father also worked for a company that made fighter plane components, and his family had to evacuate to the country during the war. So that's pretty clear, 1-to-1. I don't know when his mother died, but she did pass away. And it was, like, very impactful for him. And he's also said that, like, a lot of his strong women characters have been based off of his mom. So, definitely a lot of, semi-autobiographical for
Who are
this
the
one.
weak women based off of?
His dad.
Mm-hmm.
The film's narrative is apparently inspired by Miyazaki's professional relationships with Studio Ghibli co-founder Isao Takahata, who is the granduncle, or that's who that granduncle is based off of, and then producer Toshio Suzuki, who is the Heron. Takahata is no longer alive. He died in 2018, and then changes were made to the film structure that focused less on the granduncle and more on Mahito and the Heron. As some sort of reflection of that relationship. I don't fully know what that means, or what that implies, if, like, he died and now he's no longer in the movie, like, what that originally looked like. But Suzuki said that a lot of the storytelling choices were influenced by the shared memories he has with Miyazaki. I guess, like, when he watches it, he's like, I know where that came from. So, interesting. Like we've mentioned, there's intentionally no promotion of the film in Japan before its release. They released one poster of the film. Otherwise, there weren't any trailers, images, synopsis, or casting information before it came out. And then Suzuki's decision not to release it was Suzuki's decision not to release the information. He believes that going into a film totally blind is what moviegoers latently desire, and that you want to go into a movie not expecting anything, which, like, sometimes I agree with, because we've definitely seen trailers, like the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah.
We talked about in that episode of, like, it's all really impressive and, like, the story beats are good, but I saw all the dragons in the trailer, so it wasn't really a reveal because they already showed those. And, like, for that aspect, I believe. I don't know if I just saw a poster. If I had no prior knowledge of Ghibli and I just saw a poster, I don't know if I'd be like, time to go to the theater.
I will say the poster for The Boy and the Heron of, like, him with, like, the shaved side of the head looks real cool.
It does.
So that probably would have gotten me into it.
Mm-hmm.
and then I wouldn't have been into it.
I don't think that was the image that was released in Japan. I think it's a more stylized image of the heron.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, Ghibli's reputation, I think, alone is enough that people just heard that there was a movie coming out and they're like, yes, I'm going to see that.
Yeah. Which
yeah.
is...
You're able to do that when you have a legacy like that.
Yeah. But that's also like partly like, is this movie as good as everyone is saying it is?
Uh-huh.
Or is it because...
Because of the legacy?
Legacy.
I was thinking that because also when
this movie sucks!
when we were talking about Elemental and what's-his-face, Pete Docter or whoever was saying, like, that's the problem that Pixar has now with reviews for that movie is, like, people are comparing, or, like, they've set their own standard for themselves. And, like, that's good and bad that you have that reputation. And then also, if you don't make a masterpiece every single time, then people are like, boo.
Yeah.
I think, obviously, people didn't say boo for this one, but I was wondering if this was kind of the opposite of that, or if, like, it's kind of, is it grading on a curve?
Is it, the more confusing the Ghibli movies are, the more people think that it's better, because it's got to have a deeper meaning.
I think the fact that this is so...
Why is the door red?
The fact that this is so autobiographical is a big influence, because if you are into Ghibli, then you know, like, he's never done that before. He's, like, actually said, like, he doesn't want to do that, and then for him to suddenly change his mind and make it, like, apparently very personal, then that's interesting. And, like,
I agree.
That does carry some weight.
I agree. Like,
it doesn't always translate, not in the literal sense of, like, between languages, but, like, seeing, I forget who it was. It was probably John Eisberg. I watched some interviews that he did. Yeah. We like him, but I think it was him that was saying, like, you can't judge a movie based on your feelings when you were making the movie, and, like, you could be really good, but you had a terrible time making it, or it was the best experience on set, and you look at it afterwards and it's like, it didn't come together. And, like, I don't know, it's hard to do that with the commentary around this movie, because there's very little promotion about it, but there's a lot of conversation about it, and, like, you're learning a lot of context for the no context images that you get in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was, like, all of this context that you have given me about, like, how they've done it, all of the stuff just about his life, that makes me appreciate the film more.
Yeah.
But it goes against what Suzuki is saying of...
You don't want to know anything.
You don't want to know anything.
Right.
Like, I don't want to know anything about the plot.
Yeah.
Sure. But maybe give me the other context of just, like, this is Miyazaki's...
swan song.
Yeah. Like...
Right. Yeah, that's fair. So a couple of other points. After the film's first preview screening, February 2023, that was in Japan, there's a message from Miyazaki read aloud after the credits, which said, "Perhaps you didn't understand it. I myself don't understand it." He had a message in his heart.
Never mind. That has erased all of my context needed. That is the only thing. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's going to do well anyway because I am who I am. It's that he's gotten to a point where he doesn't have to make good stuff.
This isn't bad.
0 out of 4.
It's not like this is bad.
No, but it's not coherent.
Yeah.
And he's admitting it.
I think
so. If you've been watching this whole time and you're like, oh, this guy is just some dumb white guy from America who doesn't understand things, shut your mouth. Because I actually have Miyazaki on my side.
Yeah, Miyazaki quotes are real goofy. But yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. I've never animated a day in my life.
The descendant of that author of that How Do You Live book was at that screening, and he was like, had been talking about how in their initial meetings, like Miyazaki was saying how it's a lot of the central themes, like they mirror each other a lot, how influential this book was for him, and then he watched the movie and he's like, I think we had a different conversation. I don't fully get it, but I support it.
I can't go against me.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there are conflicting reports on if this really is Miyazaki's last film. The last thing I saw was Studio Ghibli reps saying that he has a daily presence in his office, so the general feeling is there will be more, and he's working on something else. It might be another 7 to 10 years before anything comes out, though, because they don't give him deadlines, which is fair.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I know people watch these films for the high fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite moments of these movies are the more down to earth, chill ones.
Oh, the humor is really...
The humor, yeah. It's been years since I've seen Ponyo, but I don't remember Ponyo being outrageously fantasy.
Mm.
And I know there are other ones that are more chill.
Yeah.
When I saw this poster and it was The Boy and the Heron,
mm-hmm.
I was really hoping that it was just a beautiful landscape film of this kid having its adventure in the countryside,
mm-hmm.
and there was a heron, and it wasn't this super high fantasy.
It's almost that.
It's there should still be fantasy moments.
Yeah.
It's Ghibli.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna have it.
You gotta have a round little spirit guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this...
Not what you expected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
And I agree, the animation, it was really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge scene with thousands of parakeets.
Yeah.
And each of them are individually animated and
mm-hmm.
they're doing different things.
The facial expressions are very good.
Is very impressive.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
mm-hmm.
that this was a waste of a film.
Yeah. I think the humor is one of my favorite parts, that you're engaged the whole time, even if you don't really know what's going on. It makes you want to keep watching. The heron, little nasty guy inside, for sure, was just the way that he's animated is very goofy, and he's just very concerned about his beak. He is saying, so Mahito shoots the arrow, and then the heron is whoever damages the beak is the one who has to fill it, otherwise I can't fly anymore. So then he plugs up a hole, and then the heron is well, now I'm gonna turn on you, we never had to work together. And then he feels uncomfortable, and then it just cuts to them whittling down the hole together, or the plug, and he's a little more off the top, they suddenly working together. And that, those cuts are very funny. The first time you see the heron, or one of the first times before you know that there's a man in there, he flies up to the tower, and then when he goes into that window underneath him, and he just fully just whoosh, puts his body through the window. It's very, very goofy. There's a lot that I appreciate about this movie.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite of the Ghibli ones. Should we get to our rating?
Let's give it a rating. 0 out of 4 is, oh no, Miyazaki. Dog. 1 is, it was a movie. 2 is well made or enjoyable. 3 is enjoyable and technically good. 4 is Oscar worthy. I gave it a 3 because it is technically very good.
It is.
And I enjoyed parts of it.
Mm-hmm. I also gave it a 3. It's, the technical elements are really strong. The enjoyment stuff is yes, it keeps you engaged.
Yeah.
It's not enough of the enjoyment stuff for me to put it to the 4. It's obviously Oscar worthy. It won one, but
But in my heart, well, we always talk about other movies that we've watched recently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've watched anything together. I think we're up to date.
That's true.
I watched Free Fire.
Oh yeah.
Which was sort of a video game movie. Like, it wasn't based on like a real video game, but the director was like, I really like CS:GO. And so that movie's got like a bunch of people. It's got Brie Larson, Armie Hammer, Cillian Murphy, a bunch of other people.
The directions their careers have gone.
Yeah.
Highs and lows.
It's an A24 movie. And it's basically these people. It takes place in like the 80s, I believe.
Sure.
IRA? Is that an 80s thing? These people from the IRA are trying to buy guns from these gun dealers. And they're in an old abandoned warehouse doing the deal. Deal goes wrong. The whole movie is like real time, so that's impressive.
That is, yeah.
And then they're just like trying to get out, basically. Like, so they're shooting and it was fun. Like, it was an impressive movie of just how they did it. It's not like the story is all that exciting. What about you? Have you watched any movies?
I don't think I've watched any movies. I'm watching a lot of Dropout stuff.
Yep.
That tracks. Big fan of Gastronauts. That's a fun new show they have. Yeah. I want to watch fall stuff because we haven't really done that much recently. So do the standard Over the Garden Wall. Maybe make you watch Kiki because she's a little witch. Or I watch it.
So we have a short film coming out. We've talked about it before.
We'll keep talking about it for a little bit.
Hello, my name is Fred Man. Releases on Virtual Cocktail YouTube November 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's the Virtual Cocktail proper channel, so the logo is bluish, purplish.
If you do the
this channel.
the linked channels or something on our homepage, then it'll pop up.
And if you're not subscribed to that channel, go ahead and subscribe to that channel.
Yeah.
That's where we post all of our narrative content.
We're gonna have a premiere set, so keep an eye out for that, and then you can watch it as it goes up live.
Yeah.
That's an exciting thing.
Go ahead and follow us on places. Social media, Patreon, YouTube, all that jazz. Leave questions and comments. We'll respond to it on our other podcast called The Virtual House Sessions. But for now, we'll see you next week or in 2 weeks.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.